The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NBA Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in the NBA from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NBA Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NBA.
Jonathan Kuminga announced he will miss 3 weeks after his MRI.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Warriors missing Jonathan Kuminga, who's on crutches. He will miss at least the next 11 games. Comes at a very inopportune time with a winnable schedule coming up. And then the Kings, meanwhile, don't have a head coach. But what they do have is a team playing pretty good basketball. What'd you see from Sacramento, who led wire to wire in this?
Chuck, well, good to be with you, man. It brings me back to our old days a couple years ago. Hope you're enjoying yourself out there in the Midwest and it's not too cold for you. But I got to stop you right there. Let's not start with the Kings don't have a head coach. The great Doug Christie, they want the interim tag taken off out here in Sacramento already. Okay, he is on I believe what is he? 4-game winning streak. They're 4-1 in the Doug Christie era. It was really messy early. Yes, I know. I heard from Warrior fans they've beat some teams missing their stars. They beat a Mavs team who they were missing 4 starters. They beat a 76ers team, no Joel Embiid. Then they went on to win another game, and Ja Morant was missing against the Grizzlies. So everybody was thinking, this is a fluke, this is a fluke. They do go in and take care of business against the Warriors with no De'Aaron Fox. I got to be honest with you, Chuck. I almost feel bad for Warriors fans because we haven't seen.
I get the mute button. That's the power of hosting the podcast and also being the producer styles. I opened it up the wrong way, asking you about the Kings, forgetting the fact that you did switch your beat over the years. So I'm just going to discuss how this one went down, man. First quarter for the Warriors, no free throws. They turned it over about 1 million times, 13 in the first half to be exact. There was a point there where Draymond threw it away after a made basket, and then the Kings, it's Kevin Huerter who hits the 3. It was a 5-point stretch in about 15 seconds. The Warriors, meanwhile, were chucking up threes. They were not taking it to the basket. Doesn't help when you have Jonathan Kuminga not getting rebounds defensively, to be specific. Trace Jackson-Davis just got cooked in the game, and the switch to Kevon Looney was way too late from Steve Kerr, in my opinion. Sabonis was just everywhere in this game. And then offensively, there was no movement. There was a play where Kyle Anderson had it on the block and everyone was standing around. He's like, what do you think? I'm going to go ISO here? Like, it's me. It's slow-mo. Yeah. Like, move. Buddy Hield didn't help at all. He had one of his worst games, I thought, as a Warrior. He was a minus 35. I think that number is correct. Yes, a team worst at minus 25, I should say. But not good at all in his 18 minutes of play. So let's just ask you this. From seeing the Warriors in their dynasty stretch to now watching them, I would say a lot more than loosely. I mean, you're keeping your tabs on your hometown team, man. What's going on with Golden State right now? 2 straight great games, and then today it's back to, is this just what happens in a back-to-back? Is it as simple as that? Or do we have some serious issues in the Bay Area?
Yeah, I just think that a lot of these guys were a bit overvalued, right? I mean, early on, it reminds me of that 107-game win season from the Giants when you have Buddy Hield. I know the Warriors were on pace to be the highest scoring bench. And, people were in my mention saying I was a hater when I said Buddy Hield and a bench. I know DeAnthony Melton, they missed DeAnthony Melton, but Buddy Hield and a bunch of bench scorers being the bench that's going to carry you and the secondary scorer to Steph Curry, that's just not going to cut it. And they overvalued everybody really. They started off overvaluing Jonathan Kuminga, who has been playing well. They overvalued Trace Jackson Davis, and now they overvalued Buddy Hield. You just talked about Kyle Anderson. Everyone thought it was a good pickup, but this guy was what? I mean, he was barely in the rotation in Minnesota. So it's just a bunch of guys that got overvalued, and it feels like the Warriors are the land of misfit toys. It's Draymond Green, it's Steph Curry, and it's a bunch of guys who are trying to figure out who they're going to be in the league. And that's just what it is right now. I see on the comments, someone saying, shut up, man. Hey, I didn't get blown out by 30. I'm sorry. I didn't get blown out by 30.
Oh, you're only going to make it one segment today if you keep this up, man. So it was a 7-0 run to start the game for the Sacramento Kings. Sometimes it's just one of those nights where you know what it's going to be. And it was that way against the Philadelphia 76ers Warriors on the winning end, where you just knew that, like, from the get-go, it was going to be ugly for Philly. Same goes for the Memphis game when the Warriors lost by 50 points. Sometimes you just do not have it, especially on a back-to-back. But just kind of a weird game overall, because the Warriors did claw back. It was like 15 or 16 early. The Warriors bring it to within 4 because they get 2 Curry 4-point plays. I mean, Steph was great in the first half. He had 20 points. Hits 2 threes while he gets fouled, knocks down the free throws. Second one, he was stunned. Curry was like, did that just happen again?
Yeah.
Twice in one game. Andrew Wiggins starts attacking. Warriors looked like they were going to be fine. Like, it was just a sluggish start, and they were going to turn it around. And then it wasn't even really the bench unit. It was just some careless Draymond turnovers. Curry had a few turnovers, an 11-0 run, and then it's 15 again, just like that. And then they let Malik Monk get going. And then it's 24-5 run in 5 minutes. And the Kings just really opened it up on the Warriors in that first half. And the Kings, who don't really have a good bench at all, their bench was probably better than Golden State's today.
Yeah, I will say, Chuck, I'm checking it here. 34 points off 22 turnovers. The Warriors turned it over 22 times. The Kings got 34 points off that. It's hard to win a ball game like that, and then you're not shooting the 3 ball too well. Let's see here. The Warriors shot, it wasn't good. They shot 34% from 3. But as far as the bench is concerned, that's what I was getting to before I got muted in the first segment here. But Kevin Huerter, I mean, he's a guy who's been in trade talks for almost 2 seasons now. Kevin Huerter has not shot the ball like that in a very long time. Keegan Murray, he's been injured. He's been dealing with just having the hardest defensive assignments. He hasn't shot the ball like that. So I really think, honestly, the Warriors, I'm having a little bit of fun here because I do miss being on with you, but I do think the Warriors did catch the Kings with their backs up against the wall. No De'Aaron Fox, no expectations. So they were just playing really free. And somebody needs to tell the Warriors, don't be too proud to double Malik Monk, because that man kills the Warriors every single time they play each other. Just double him. Get the ball out of his hands, because he plays, I tweeted this, Chuck, he plays like the Warriors were supposed to draft him. I don't have any reports. I don't know that he ever was. I don't know if the Warriors were even in contention, but he plays like the Warriors were supposed to draft him, and everybody knows it except for the Warriors.
Yeah, Monk was awesome. 26, 12 assists. And then, I mean, DeRozan didn't do much, just 12 points in the game on 5 of 14 shooting. They keep him in check. Keegan Murray got off to a hot start, hitting a trifecta of threes, and then didn't do a ton the rest of the game. He finished with 11, Ellis 11, but you know you're always going to get good defense from Keon. And then Sabonis, man, 22, 13, and 7 again. When are the Warriors going to get some size, man? We've been clamoring for size for years, and it's easier said than done to a certain degree to at least find a finished product on both sides of the floor. But at least defensively, someone that could stop Sabonis. I mean, come on now. Your best option in the game today was Looney, who goes 16 minutes and was only a -6 in those 16 minutes and did grab 5 rebounds, had 9 points. Looney was the much better option than Trace Jackson Davis, who went for 0, 2, and 3. Steve Kerr's making a whole lot of money to figure out that, to figure that out early. I mean, the report says that Looney always plays Sabonis pretty well. I mean, go back to the 7-game series that they played a few years ago. Looney was getting 20 boards multiple games.
Yeah, but I don't know, Chuck. You know, me and you are both baseball guys. You do want to have a bit of a set lineup. I don't know that Steve Kerr, he's already bouncing with the injuries that they've had, and Kuminga is coming
All
off the bench.
bets are off, though, man. With no Kuminga, with no Gary Payton, with no Brandon Bajimski. I mean, at a certain point, all bets are off this particular stretch. You go with the better fit, and it just seemed like Looney's bulk to help down low with Sabonis, and his rebounding abilities were a little bit better than Trace Jackson Davis, and the numbers prove it.
Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more near you. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
You are Locked On Wolves Postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network.
All right, man, so Pistons coming in pretty red hot, I would say. Winners of 5 of their last 6. No Jaden Ivey, as you told us, what was that, Thursday night? But Cade Cunningham, he's been a monster. He kind of picked up right where he left off. 40 points for Cade Cunningham. Anthony Edwards, though, says, I'll see your 40. I'll raise you 13 more. Breaks his career high by 2 points tonight. Puts up 53. All said and done. Not enough, though. Not enough, because Wolves defense, they just couldn't buy a stop when they needed one. They got down 12 at halftime. They ended up getting down 24 in the third quarter. Credit to them to cutting it back down to about 10 or 11 points, I want to say, going into the fourth, but just not enough. Paint points were mind-boggling, 58-34 advantage, Detroit, and the Wolves lose their third in a row, despite this, again, career-high night from Anthony Edwards. Just start like we always do, kind of your biggest takeaways and your A topics first and foremost, Jack.
Yeah, I think the Timberwolves need to make a move of some sort. I just think that this was one of those games where I think the team just looked completely lifeless. And it was one of the least fun Timberwolves games to watch in the last few years for my money. And that's despite Anthony Edwards having a career high 53 points. I think it's got to be up there for one of the most individual basketball games I can remember watching in a long, long time. Just for context here of just how bad the rest of the starting 5 was, and really everyone else that played in this game besides Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards got to 38 points before any other Timberwolf scored 6 points.
That's insane. Have you ever seen that?
I was not
You've
around.
been watching NBA basketball for your whole life. Have you ever seen that?
I can't ever remember seeing that in a game. I think, the only other super individual games I can remember on that level were when James Harden and Kyrie Irving were both hurt in that playoff series against the Milwaukee Bucks a few years ago, where Kevin Durant just went absolutely bananas for the Nets. And ironically, KD was the guy who held the scoring record at Little Caesars Arena before Ant broke it tonight. And I just think that, for that to take place, Rudy Gobert just looks completely checked out on offense. At the start of this game, Anthony Edwards was getting, doubled. They were playing boxes and elbows. This is a very long Detroit Pistons starting 5 now with Asar Thompson in there instead of Jaden Ivey, between him and Cade Cunningham and Tobias Harris and Jalen Duren. Those are all guys with 7-foot plus wingspans. And Tim Hardaway Jr., I think, is like 6'4" and has got a pretty plus wingspan too. So it's just a very long team. And for a team like that really likes to pack the paint and generally really controls the paint matchup in these games, there just wasn't a whole lot of space for Ant to work. And so early in this game, he was getting off the ball and finding Rudy Gobert on the short roll, hit Rudy Gobert 3 different times for opportunities for Rudy to pass. And I've normally been one to praise Rudy Gobert's playmaking, especially since he got here. He's taken leaps and bounds growth in that area, but he was really poor in this game and has not been very good for the majority of this season in those situations. And, he had 3 turnovers in the first 4 or 5 minutes of this game. You could tell Ant was frustrated. You could tell everyone else was really frustrated. And there just weren't many opportunities for Gobert to score. He didn't create many opportunities for himself to score. And, again, just his inability really to be able to dribble the basketball and just take 2 dribbles and finish over somebody with either hand that's not a dunk is just kind of rearing its head again. And that he'll be in the middle of the floor, no one within 3, 4, 5 feet of him, and he still turns it over. And those are things that just, I think, really suck the air out of the offense when there isn't a whole lot of air to go around, considering the spacing issues that Jade McDaniels and Julius Randle have also contributed to. And Mike Conley, too, just looks he does not look like the same Mike Conley we've seen since he arrived in Minnesota. And I think Mike Conley's done a ton of awesome things for this team, for this franchise. He's a wonderful human being. He's probably my favorite professional athlete who I've ever interacted with in a locker room over my last, 5-6 years covering the Timberwolves and the Lynx. And it's just unfortunate because you want to really root for him and you really want to see him do well. And all these guys swear by him and love him as a veteran, but it's just coming to the point where it's hard to make a case for him to be on the floor.
So what do you let's just say I hand you the keys tonight. You're running the show. You're the GM, you're the coach right now. Are you making a move? Are you pulling the trigger on something or what? Like, what's the right play in your mind? What do you want to see? Because we are now 34 games into the season. This is a 500 ball club despite all the talent, all the depth, all the fun, interesting pieces that we've got, and this team just went to the Western Conference Finals. What do you want to see at this point right now?
I want to see myself enjoy watching a Timberwolves basketball game because I enjoy what the Timberwolves are doing, not necessarily what the other team are doing. If there's any team to lose to for the Wolves, the Pistons are absolutely the team that you want to lose. Because if the Pistons are out of the lottery, then the Wolves get the Pistons first round pick this year, which is obviously something that is a good thing for the Wolves. But if you handed me the keys, I think I would probably make a trade, and I would probably I'd probably move on from Julius Randle. And I know that Miami is a team that has had interest in Julius Randle leading up to this season. I think Detroit was funny enough another team that had interest in him, but I don't know that a game like tonight endears himself too well to a team that is flying around and playing really hard and playing really physically and aggressively on the defensive end of the floor. I think Randall, could disrupt that a little bit, but they certainly do need more size. No question about that. So I think, I would certainly think the Wolves would try to, at least get in the Zoom call with whatever teams are talking to the Miami Heat for Jimmy Butler, and see not necessarily for Jimmy Butler to come back here, but for Julius Randle potentially to be on the move to Miami or another team. I think that there's certainly an opportunity for that to happen. And I just think the Timberwolves right now need to put as much space around Anthony Edwards as they can. And I think that, another opportunity or another option for them would be to lean into Jaden McDaniels being more of a 4 than a 3. And so, maybe that results in the Timberwolves maybe, trying to acquire a backup 5 and just have Naz and Jaden be your 4s. And, Jeff, by the way, Jeff in the comments, I was not suggesting that the Wolves trade for Jimmy Butler. That was not what I was suggesting. So
you just know Miami is interested. That's where you start as the front
just
office.
That Miami's interested in Randall.
Yeah.
And so maybe you could get in as a 3rd team or a 4th team in one of those trades. So I certainly think that's part of it. And I think, and I think part of it too for the Wolves is just that I think that when you put more spacing around Ant, not only does it help Ant, but it also helps Rudy Gobert. And I think that Rudy Gobert would probably be a little bit more effective offensively with having a more spaced out defense and being able to crash the glass a little bit easier. And I think guys be able to find him a little bit more easily in the paint because the passing lanes aren't as clogged with teams just sagging in, playing boxes and elbows, packing the paint. And,
right.
And I think that's also just kind of a byproduct of the spacing issues that the Timberwolves have had. And I think too, like when you just look and the other part of it too, the last thing I'll say here, Luke, is just for Ant, Jaden, Nikhil, Naz, and Dante to all make their first three in this game. Ant then went 9 of 14. Nikhil went 1 of 6. Naz went 1 of 3. Dante went 1 of 4, and Jaden went 0 of 1. I mean, they all started out hot.
Yeah, you got DDV 0 for 4.
Game.
So, like, combined, those guys were 2 for 14
the rest of the game.
Brutal. Yeah.
So it just shaping up to be like, this is going to be a fun game, good game. And it just didn't end up that way for the Timberwolves. And it was just, I think, even more frustrating because Ant was as good as he was, and no one else really joined him.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. Looking at the wild card round, the Pittsburgh Steelers are big underdogs to the Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers have limped into the playoffs, and many are wondering how quickly they'll get bounced. FanDuel thinks it'll be fast. They have the Ravens favored by 8.5. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Kawhi Leonard returned on Saturday night, and
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast.
ladies and gentlemen, Kawhi Leonard is back. I was at the game on Saturday, and I have to say it was the second loudest game, I think, of the season for us. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about that, his return, how dangerous we can be, the vision that I started to see of this team when they were all playing together. And by the way, if you're wondering why I'm wearing these glasses, one, I've been staring at too many screens all day, but two, these were actually given out by the Clippers in the wall, or should I say the swell, the heart of the wall that you hear on TV, because they're doing WWE on Monday at the Intuit Dome. They gave out a plain white t-shirt that you could rip for the free throw distraction, and they already had a cut in it, so it was easy to rip, and then a WWE Clippers collab rally towel and these shades. Pretty awesome, pretty awesome. So let's talk about Kawhi. Kawhi Leonard was back. He was wearing red. And man, I'll tell you, Kawhi Leonard is a needle mover. I could feel the palpable difference in the atmosphere on Saturday night. It felt like there were more fans, a lot more red. And it was the first time we'd ever seen Kawhi Leonard wear red in a Clipper uniform. And when he came out of the tunnel, you could hear the crowd. I was obviously in the loudest section in the building, the swell. And then, of course, when he was introduced, man, I haven't heard noise like that for a Clipper player being introduced in quite some time. If you want to check out what that sounded like, I have a video on my YouTube channel, released it on Sunday morning, with fans' thoughts of his return, and I got his first shot. Speaking of his first shot, how about the fact that Kawhi made 3 threes in his first game back? If you go back to the beginning of the 2022-23 season and the way he was working his way back from that torn ACL, the 3-ball was the one thing that really took a while to come. And the fact that he hit 3 right away and had some good lift on it, first shot he took was a 3 and he made it. I mean, it was awesome to see, and he looked pretty good, honestly. He looked pretty lively. Defense was solid, as you would expect. I mean, there was just so much adrenaline. It was probably so much adrenaline for him, but the building was just electric. You know what I'm saying? We had Chris Dunn on Trae Young to start the game. Ivica Zubac's on Clint Capella. And, of course, you knew Dyson Daniels was going to take a crack at James Harden. I want to also note that Jalen Johnson didn't play, and the Hawks were on the second out of a back-to-back. So even if Kawhi Leonard had played or not, I still think that we should have beaten them. But, man, we absolutely destroyed them. Absolutely destroyed them. Ran away with it. Game was pretty much over after the third quarter. I was honestly wondering why we kept Norman Powell in so long. But we won 131 to 105 in Kawhi's return. Outscored them in the second quarter. Get this. 45-26. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to talk more about Kawhi in a sec, but the two stats when I was looking at the Halo board that stood out to me, points in the paint and points off turnovers. Those two stats were drastic. Points in the paint, 40 for the Hawks. Wait for it. 74 for us. 74. And then fast break points, 14 for the Hawks, 46 for us. 23 turnovers for the Hawks and 32 points we scored off those turnovers. Now, that's where Kawhi comes in. We look at his stat line, 12 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 2 turnovers, and I'll tell you how both of them came. Lazy, high lob passes, cross court on double teams. So Kawhi's got to get that rust off. He's going to get used to getting double teamed again and passing out of those double teams and, just getting back to the NBA, the speed of an NBA game. But double figures in his first game, 4 for 11. The funny part was he was 1 for 6 from 2, but 3 for 5 from 3. And I don't know. I mean, it's going to be, there was one time where he caught the ball under the basket and he was completely fouled and didn't call it. So, 4 for 10 first game. Let's say that should have been free throws for him. The weird part was he was 1 for 3 from the foul line, but I have zero concern about his shooting percentage. He only played 19 minutes, but partially because we were so in command. I think the way we were playing him, I thought that it gave me the thought that maybe we would play him more minutes if the game was close. It felt like we were giving him time. We were just up by so much that we didn't even need to play him in that fourth quarter or anything like that, thankfully. But he stayed in all the way till 4:42 in the first quarter. So he started the game and played 7 minutes and 18 seconds. So we were letting him get some rhythm, which was nice to see. And to me, it's not about the field goal percentage, as I was about to say. It's about how he looks physically. And I thought he looked pretty spry, pretty, mobile. He was looking good on defense. And just having him back defensively, it allows us to have more size, another very good defender, whether on the ball or off the ball. Just another guy that wants to guard and is very good at it. We're talking about a 2-time defensive player of the year. And even though he's not that guy anymore defensively, he's still beyond a positive defender. And that's the best part about having him. It's just not even just the defense, but his threat on the floor offensively. The fact that he's even garnering double teams in his first game back. And when teams want to help off that corner when he's in it, it's not as easy anymore. So you just have that much more firepower. But overall, I just have to say, seeing Kawhi back, seeing him play his first game at the Intuit Dome, just a blessing to be there. I've said a lot of things about Kawhi and, how hard it's been having him on the team just based on his injuries. And, he's so quiet and his camp's so quiet about so many things. It's mysterious. It's just not ended in, a good result at the end of the seasons for Clipper fans with him on the roster. But my criticisms of Kawhi rarely come on the basketball court. Of course, I have a very high standard for him. You know what I'm saying? Because I think he's one of the best small forwards of all time. The reason I'm saying this is because before the Harden stands used to say I was harsh on Harden, Kawhi stands used to say I was harsh on Kawhi. And my criticisms of Kawhi are rarely basketball related. I think he's one of my favorite players in the league to watch. To me, he's one of the best players in basketball when he's at his best. And the reason why I hold him to such a high standard is because he has proven that he could be a best player on a championship team. He, to me, is one of the best small forwards, top 10, to ever play the game. And this game of basketball, a lot of people have played basketball. But if you're in the conversation, first of all, if you're not that many people in the history of mankind have played in the NBA, let alone won championships, let alone been all-stars, let alone been the best player on a championship team. So if you're in the conversation for the best top 10 of a position ever, that means that I have a crazy amount of respect for how good you are. And I think Kawhi even has a case for top 5 if we're talking about his peak. But, I'm very respectful of history, so I always say all these things are arguable. Point being that my criticisms of Kawhi are rarely basketball related. I just hope he can stay on the court. It was fantastic to see him on the court. The fans, Clipper Nation was super into it. I talked to so many fans, and it felt like the general consensus is none of us know and none of us believe necessarily that this is going to be the year he stays healthy, but we can all just hope. We can all just do our best to support the team and hope that this year might be different And it seems like a general consensus that when he is healthy, this team is going to be better than the Paul George team. And I agree with that. And my biggest concern about this team losing Paul George was, what are we going to be doing in games that Kawhi doesn't play? And to be honest, I was wrong on that. I think Norman Powell being able to be insane was what changed the game. And you know what I think was awesome, and my biggest takeaway too, besides the fact that Kawhi is back and he's looking pretty good, and I think he's going to be back to that guy very soon. He didn't take away from anybody. If anything, he just made us better, even though he's not at 100%. You got James Harden still diming, maybe not being as aggressive looking for a shot, but still diming. And then Ivica Zubac being an absolute Zushak monster. And then Norman Powell, leading the way, scoring the basketball. So you got to love it. 131-105. We absolutely smacked the Hawks. And Kawhi Leonard is back. And ladies and gentlemen, game 35, he's back.